Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're here with Champions of Chaos. Yep, we can start showing off the DLC, and there's going to be multiple DLC videos today showcasing all the champions and their respective rosters. We're going to start off with Azazel. As you guys know, I've been waiting for this character for a very long time. I'm very excited to showcase him. So he starts off in Norska, right to the border of Kislev, and yeah, you know, everything that you've seen with the rework for the Warriors of Chaos also affects these boys, but there's a lot more to talk about. We'll start off with his faction effects known as Humanity's Bane, which has the following benefits. Diplomatic relations plus 80 with the Empire, Kislev, Cathay, and Bretonnia, all the human factions. Vassals gain immune to psychology and spread SLAANESH corruption, can seduce units, and finally applies and benefits from seductive influence and gifts of SLAANESH. So if you're used to playing as Nakari's faction, well, you should already have some knowledge on how to play as this SLAANEShy faction too, at least when it comes to certain effects, which works out quite well, because that means that the Warrior of Chaos Monogod faction for SLAANESH kind of feels like a sub-faction as a whole. As for his own personal trait, we have Prince of Damnation, which has the following effects. Passive ability Domineering Aura, seduce unit cost minus 20% for Empire, Bretonnia, Kislev, and Cathay units. This is going to be very useful considering that, well, you're right next to Kislev, and just a stone's throw away is the Empire, and those are areas that you're really going to be fighting. And finally, seduce units budget plus 25%. Once again, very useful, and you will find yourself using it just so you can have a few ranged units. Domineering Aura itself is a hex, which is an area effect. It can reduce the melee defense and melee attack of enemies, and then it itself can get stronger as there's multiple enemies around the area with their leadership that is wavering or lower. So if you can take out enemy leadership, this is actually quite good. You'll be able to slaughter quite a lot of humans without too much of an issue. In terms of skill points, well, yeah, you know, everything that you can expect. He's got access to the Law of SLAANESH, he's got access to a red line which will boost up his units, a yellow line which will boost up himself, and a generic blue line which is more in line with the Warriors of Chaos rework, which we've already gone into detail. What he does have is a unique skill line itself, which will boost him up, also kind of improve local provinces, do extra damage. It very much depends on, well, what you actually take, and to be honest, it does make him quite strong. I've been using him frontline and he's been able to do a lot of damage. He can become a little squishy, I must admit there. There are certain cases where he will take too much damage, but that's all kind of expected with these types of situations where, you know, spells or arrow fire, that stuff he's very vulnerable to. But all in all, the character is still very strong, and you will notice him on the battlefield. Believe me, you will. Okay, so we also start off with a Chaos Sorcerer of Shadows, and it's very important to note this, as I've seen some people a little bit like, how does this exactly work? So, your characters are all undivided at the very beginning, and what you'll have to do is take them to the Path of Glory. They'll require a certain amount of levels, and that way they can then devote themselves to, say, for example, SLAANESH. So, level 5, easy enough. You will need a lot of souls, though, so you will have to wait. But in general, it doesn't take too long. Keep in mind that certain laws will only be able to devote to certain gods. So, for example, the Law of Shadows and the Law of SLAANESH is, of course, to SLAANESH. The Law of Metal of Tzeentch is devoted to Tzeentch, exactly, and the Law of Nurgle and Death is devoted to Nurgle. So, it's easy enough to kind of get used to. It might be a bit confusing if you haven't played the tabletop before, but yeah, it's simple enough. So the campaign is very simple at the very beginning. This is very much the same for every single Champion of Chaos. What you have to do is get your forces together, go in, take out the enemy army, and then get your first Dark Fortress. Thankfully with that, you do start off with a pretty good starting force. As you can see here, Azazel starts off with a unit of Chosen, 3 units of Chaos Warriors. These are all SLAANESH marked. 2 units of Marauders with hand, weapon, and shield, 1 unit of Hellscourge Riders, you know, these are the Hellstriders, and 1 Chaos Manticore. These cannot be marked, and it's just simple enough. Just go in there, do your damage. You should be able to take it out with that force. You can recruit some extra units prior to that if you so wish. It's just 2 more usually, but hey, and there you go. You start. Now your campaign officially begins, essentially. You've taken it over, you've gotten some levels, now try and cause some chaos. Now, obviously, we can't really bring ruin to the world without building up our economy, and this is where our Dark Fortresses come into play. Dark Fortresses are your only major proper cities. We'll talk about the minor outposts later, but these are littered around the world map. You've already seen that video already where I pinpoint exactly where all of them are, and you don't really recruit in the traditional way. You should already know this by now. It's based more on a RNG feature. However, you can start building up to be able to get some better units, and you can also build up your economy here, which is very, very important for a Warriors of Chaos faction. So there's loads of different benefits. You kind of have to tailor your Dark Fortress to exactly what you want. Obviously, focusing up on money is very, very important, as this is one of 3 ways that you will be getting your cash, or at least your main version of cash. So yeah, be careful, as the buildings are expensive. I can't stress that enough. I've made too many of that mistake myself. So we're going to talk about technology now, and I know, it's not the most exciting thing, but it kind of is, you see. Now, the Champions of Chaos aren't like the normal ones that we already have from the Warriors of Chaos race pack from back in the launch of Warhammer 1. This is because these Champions of Chaos work as their own individual sub-factions, mini-races, sub-races, whatever you want to call them. This is what they are. So that means that they have their own dedicated tech tree. Now, it will look very, very similar to that of, say, for example, Festus or Village. They'll look very much the same. However, the effects are very different. We're right now playing as Azazel, which means that Azazel has access to a bunch of different tech, which is very SLAANESH focused, where you'll be able to get bonuses towards certain abilities, or even some battle abilities which are only available for the SLAANESH faction. And I think that's kind of cool, as that means that it kind of separates him from the other Champions of Chaos, from Archaon, from Kolek, from all the others, and it's very, very stylized. Now, you will also notice that these are actually quite linear. What I would suggest is keeping an eye out. Don't just click at the end and expect you to get all the good ones. You're going to have to explore a little bit. I've made that mistake myself, so it's just important to know, especially if you want, like, say, extra authority for your chosen god, or even the reduction to getting characters to become fully marked, even being able to get some units ranked up to, say, chosen, because yes, you need to actually get the tech for that. So take some time, go bit by bit, find the ones which mean the most to you, and that's always going to be best. Honestly, it's a lot of detail, and there's so much to it that you can actually have a lot of fun with these tech trees. So I'm going through all of them. You can stop wherever you want and all that type of stuff, but it won't be too long now until you guys are able to actually play for yourselves. And really, I don't think there's any bad techs, barring the allegiance points one. But mind you, that's because I generally don't use the allegiance points a lot. I know I should at this point, especially for the Warriors of Chaos. It does help with all the vassals, but in general, yeah, it's just how it is. I will praise Creative Assembly for this though, because this is nice to see different tech trees and being so stylized. It just kind of feels a bit more fluffy. But anyways, let's move on, because we do have a lot more to talk about. Now we have to talk about the Gifts of Chaos. And as you can see, the SLAANESH one is very different to that of, well, any other faction, because this is very SLAANESH-centric. So you've got the Keepers of Secrets there. It's actually a terrain piece from Age of Sigmar, I believe. Yeah, it is. It's been a while since I've actually seen it. So unlike the Undivided factions, you don't have access to all the gifts. This is actually more centered around the SLAANESH ones and the Undivided ones. You won't be able to get the Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Khorne one, because, well, you know, that kind of makes sense. And yeah, they're locked behind some stuff in some cases. It depends on what you have. Souls are a big thing here, so souls are how you can keep your gifts going, and it's very, very important that you do this. They have pretty good benefits, and this is mostly how you're going to get all your big demons. And while the demons themselves might not seem as useful, believe me, it does help having some big Keeper of Secrets, or even having access to fiends and stuff. Plus, it's an extra army that you can pretty much spawn instantly if you have enough in your reserves. So yeah, I would suggest that. When you look towards the Undivided version, it's mostly focusing around buffs and stuff, but you can get Furies here. And funny enough, Furies are actually kind of useful for the Champions of Chaos. Like, I can't even believe I'm saying that myself, but yeah. So yeah, I'm just scrolling down through them. You can see all the bonuses. Some of them will give you Fear to all Undivided units, extra experience gain for the Undivided units. It depends on where you're going for. And to be honest, you need to keep an eye on this, not only because souls are such a valuable resource for so many things, but it's upkeep, there's also cost of entry, a little bit of mathematics, but hey, you know, these things need to be done. Keep in mind also, some of them are locked by tech, so yeah, you'll need to kind of hunt through the tech tree. Okay, let's talk about recruitment ever so slightly. So as you are aware, how it works is that it's based on a bit of an RNG feature. The more corruption you have, the better chance of certain units that you'll be able to get and so on. And yeah, we talked about this in detail with the rework, because this comes with a feature of the rework. But also, you know, this is a Slaanesh faction, so you will get access to a bunch of Slaanesh demons. So with this, you're able to, you know, just work around. Obviously, this works on your gifts and all that. You need to kind of think ahead, because some of these units are really good. You have the chance of getting demonettes at the beginning, and then obviously some chariots and so on. But recruitment is very important, and you won't be building up armies in the traditional way, so it will definitely be a lot slower, and it's something that you need to keep an eye out, because it can easily catch you off guard if you're not really paying attention. Trust me, I am an idiot, and yeah, it happens to me. But if you're able to build up your dark fortresses, get some tech involved and so on, you will have a very, very nice amount of units that will just be there in case you need it. So say, for example, if you're playing as Azazel and Kislev decides to declare war on you, you can have a pretty big army. Now, obviously, you can't really rely on marauders all the time, and this is where unit upgrades come into effect. This is something that we've known for a while, ever since the rework has been showcased. But then also there is a dedicated Slaanesh one, because if you're playing as a Slaanesh faction, you want a Slaanesh roster, don't you? So it works exactly the same way. It's a little bit smaller than the undivided roster, but, you know, DLC in the future will kind of add to that. And how it works is that you get your divided marauder, undivided marauder, and then turn it into a divided marauder, and then you can start boosting them up into Warriors of Chaos of Slaanesh, Chosen of Slaanesh, you know, Hellstriders of Slaanesh, all that type of stuff. You've got access to quite a lot of units, and this allows you to basically have some fun and have a proper tailored roster, which is something that I've dreamed of ever since the series was announced, like so many years ago. I can't believe we're finally here. So anyways, Azazel actually might have one of the best starts, considering that you are right at the edge of Norska. You can get all these dark fortresses, make all these different enemies, you know, become your vassals and so on. It's actually quite a good thing. So what you have to do is just kind of build up your forces, just start playing your campaign as normal. Yes, it's a little bit different because of the mechanics involved, but it's still Total War, you know, it's still Total War. Level up your characters, build up your buildings, get some forces out, and start doing some damage. So when we covered the Warriors of Chaos rework, we did already cover Authority, but it is important to note that Authority also comes into play into Champions of Chaos, and as you get more Authorities, you can see you can get more benefits, so reduced upkeep for Slaanesh units, increased casualty replenishment for Slaanesh units, reduced recruitment cost for Slaanesh units, and finally Warband upgrade cost for Slaanesh units just being reduced once again. It's important, especially as money is not easy to come by as the Warriors of Chaos, so yeah, keep in mind of this. And again, if you're taking over settlements in Norska and a few other locations which aren't at the site of a Dark Fortress, you've got the option to occupy them, and we'll talk about those little things a little bit later on in this video. Or you can raise it, you can sack it, or gift it to your vassal, and that's the best thing that you can do. This is just my humble opinion, as this makes your vassal a little stronger. This also means that you can just get the full area, so that means that you can already get the commandment out and all that type of stuff, get the bonuses, which are quite important, especially spreading some more Slaanesh corruption is very, very important. And yeah, it's just very basic, but it does bear just giving out a little bit of knowledge every now and then, just to make sure that you are aware of these things. And here's another pro tip for those who are in the Northern Wastes, sad for Paul Festus, but if you want to get more and more vassals, you don't have to fight your way through, just completely skip the other territories if you're not at war with them, and then just instantly take the actual main city, so that way you can vassalize them and you don't have to fight your way through. Also, as you do get seductive influence, do take advantage of that, as, you know, if you've played Nakari, you're kind of used to this, but this gives you a lot of benefits. It makes sure that your vassals also kind of supplying a little bit more cash, and obviously this means that you can have a lot of vassals which aren't actually just the Norskans. You can get some Imperials, some Kislevites, and all that type of stuff using the traditional Slaaneshi means, and that works out quite well if you actually just want to see how much you can take over, which I've been doing with Nakari in the middle of Wolf 1, and I think it's kind of funny. So Sorcerer's rank 5 now. It doesn't really take that long to level them up. What you will see is that, yeah, it's 2,000 souls. It's quite expensive. We don't have that many souls too. We only have 2,200. So I would advise against it early on if you don't want to make the same mistake that I did very early on when I was actually just trying it out. So what you want to do is just wait, especially since there's modifiers. Later on in-game, you can actually get a bunch of modifiers to reduce that quite heavily, and it does make it a lot better. So as you can see here at this point, the modifier takes it down to 900, which is much, much better. We've also got a lot more souls too, because I've been fighting my way through Norska, and yeah, that's fine. He's also rank 10, and he gets taken down to, I believe it was rank 6. So anytime you do mark a lord, you will lose some levels, and this also affects heroes too. This also will doubly affect the lord option, because then you want to mark them again to become a demon prince. So yeah, you do lose some levels there. You do get a nice visual update to the character, which I think is freaking awesome. You also get some skills, which is, well, you know, Slaaneshi, because you're playing as a Slaaneshi faction, and I think that type of stuff works out very, very well. Again, they will get weaker. They will lose the immortality trait if you had them at rank 20 and then tried to take them up. It's just something that you do need to keep an eye on, which is going to take some time to get used to, I think, for a lot of the player base, myself included, because I make a lot of mistakes, I must admit. This is also something else that I really want to talk about. If you're playing as Azazel on harder difficulties, even the low ones too, the Kizovite and other human factions will still have a decent amount of aversion against you, even though you've got quite a massive diplomacy bonus. So Kosteltin will declare war on you, so it's always good to be able to spawn an army to defend if possible. You've also got a decent garrison, but that depends on how long it's taken. This is turn 14. I had a little bit of stuff. It's nothing too great, but it's something just to defend, because they will attack. You know, player bias is still a thing. It's still there. So now I'm going to dedicate this Chaos Lord, mostly because I destroyed Erengrad. I wanted to try and get my replenishment up, and then yeah, Empire faction decided, oh look, free city. So we run back. It's only costing around 600 souls now, which is actually quite good. And the character gets a new visual look. It's now a Chaos Lord of Slaanesh. He goes down to rank 6 once again, which is a bit of a shame. And he gets access to a few unique skills, which is obviously very, very much expected. But the character itself can then dedicate himself to become a full Demon Prince once getting to rank 20. So it's not that far. It's just the case of getting another 14 skills. But by that point, you know, you've been able to do a decent amount of damage. You've probably got some warriors and chosen with you and so on. The only reason I don't with this is because it's a fresh army. So yeah, it's not that difficult, and you do get a lot of benefits. Moving on, I know a lot of people will be very excited about this. So every now and then you can get some events, right, which can give you either units or just general bonuses, but you've also got access to get the Sword of Slaanesh, you know, Slaanesh's Blade, which is very powerful, you know, unbreakable, extra ward save, loads of extra attack, armor-piercing weapon damage. I know a lot of people were kind of missing it, because obviously you used to get that from the Realm of Slaanesh. So yeah, it's here, guys, it's here, and I know you guys will be very happy. And believe me, when I get the item on a Demon Prince, I'm usually very happy myself. So this is what I was saying about not bothering taking other settlements, which aren't really your main area. So your Dark Fortresses and all that. Whilst you still can get some good stuff, like for example, there are resource buildings which will give you faction-wide bonuses, and if you can defend them, it's fine, but they can only stay in the same tier, they can't be upgraded, they'll have a very small garrison. Keeping them defended, especially as you start getting into bigger wars, it's going to be a bit of an issue. It's definitely going to be a bit of an issue. It just depends on your playstyle and if you're willing to take that risk. But generally, your allies will take them over and they'll start, like, you know, building up and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, it just depends, really. Anyways, let's move on to the final bit of the campaign before we look at the roster itself, because there's a lot to talk about still. When you get to rank 20, you can become a Demon Prince, and that's fairly expensive. Keep in mind that you don't have to. When you get to rank 20, you can wait, and your Lord will already have been immortal anyway, so you're cool. Anyways, so yeah, it's kind of worth it because they're quite strong. They do get some unique skills and all that, but what you do get access to is a very potent caster/melee lord, which also has access to being able to fly, which, as you can imagine, is very, very useful in these types of games. He's quite well built. You can then again put the Slaaanesh's Blade on him and just have a lot of fun, you know? But generally, it really much depends on your playstyle. Whether or not you do want them or not is just really up to you. I like them, but I've also been using in my own personal playthrough, which I've painted the map. Yep, I've painted the map a few times already with very, very little amount of sleep. It's nice to have a healthy mix of Chaos Lord or Sorcerer Lord, depending on what you're playing, and Demon Princes. But again, completely up to you. Alright, so now we're moving on to the roster, because I want to talk about the units. We're dividing the roster into its separate lords, because, you know, monogod style, it always makes sense. So Azazel's first, and obviously Azazel is quite good. He's a hybrid, so he's good for melee, he's good for spellcasting, he's very, very fast too, so he can pick out a lot of stuff. He's very good for sniping. Honestly, I've been waiting years for this character, so I can say nothing bad about him other than the fact that he is kind of squishy. But that's expected from a character who's pretty much only wearing a loincloth. Your Chaos Lord of Slaanesh is your only Slaanesh devoted Lord choice at the very moment, and he's freaking awesome. I mean, that's all I can pretty much say. Like, he looks amazing. He's a completely new skin. We've never really seen this look before, not even in Age of Sigmar, and I think that these even look better than the Age of Sigmar characters, because goddamn does he look just absolutely special. I just can't find anything at fault with it. Obviously, yes, I'm fully aware that there is a bit of Slaaneshi bias, but hey, he looks cool, and that's the most important thing. And yeah, melee, that's what he does. He's up there to do some damage and kill some stuff. And let me just say, he does do that quite well. Now, if we start moving on, we do have a bunch of units. This is pretty much, before we go into the actual units and the hero choices and stuff, this is just something really special to me. The idea of having fully marked armies is something that we really didn't have on the tabletop. Yes, we did by giving them a mark and then making them our own, but seeing something special like this is just very, very wonderful. You can see it there with all the units, and it's themed, and obviously I'm going to be saying this about all 4 factions, because who knows, maybe in Old World we will get this, and I know a lot of the fan base will be very, very happy for that. So yes, you do have the second Lord choice, which is the Demon Prince, but it's not really a Lord choice because you have to do 2 things to actually get it. And this is your hybrid. You know, it does decent damage, it's good for melee, it's good for flying about, it's very fast. It's not as fast as Azazel, but still fast enough, and obviously has access to the Lore of Slaanesh, so you're able to do quite a decent amount. Hopefully in the future we will be able to, like, get a few more variants, but even then, these are still very, very good. Very much a big fan of them. It looks cool. Yes, it's assets that we've seen before, but hey, it kind of makes sense, and why not reuse it, right? For a Slaanesh devoted hero choice, well, we have the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh, and this can either be with the Lore of Slaanesh or the Lore of Shadows, so both of them are quite good. So when it comes to the laws itself, it's pretty much just dependent on what type of magic you prefer. Both of them are quite good, and if you can have 2, why not? Because you might as well just kind of add some extra support with that. Again, very stylized, very Slaaneshi. I'm not going to be saying this a lot. It's just, I'm a big fan of the look. I'm just so happy that we finally have proper marked warriors. It's been a long time coming, and this is so important to me. And next we do have 2 units of Marauders of Slaanesh. Now keep in mind that these are not the ones from vanilla, from base game of Warhammer 3, as those have now been renamed to Devoted Marauders of Slaanesh. So these are completely new. You can tell by the armor look and all that type of stuff. You've got 2 variants, the one with axe and shield, and then the one with Hell Scourges and shield. So you've got that Slaaneshi vibe, you've got the weapons that are known for that, very defensive with the Hell Scourges, so you've got a little bit of everything. It's actually quite nice to actually have some variety, which was very much lacking in the Monogod roster, but they are available with the Monogods too. Well, not the Marauders, but the Warriors, yes. And obviously by now you've already noticed that we do have a Monogod unit in the roster for the Slaanesh faction, and this obviously makes sense. This is the same case where a lot of the units that were introduced for the Monogods do go to the Warriors of Chaos, mainly because they were part of the Warriors of Chaos army book. So you've got the Hellstriders with Hell Scourges and the standard ones with spears, which is just really helpful to have really fast-moving cavalry. 100 speed is just absolutely amazing. They're freaking awesome. I love them on the tabletop. I love them here too. So I'm just so happy to see them here too. Same thing would go with the Spawn of Slaanesh, but that also makes sense because Chaos Spawn are part of the Chaos Warriors roster. So having them with the Musk and just being able to do some heavy hitting with an unbreakable unit is obviously very, very helpful. And believe me, you will find a lot of uses for them in the campaign once you play as Azazel. So yeah, this is something that you can't really avoid. And yeah, this happens a lot. This is also with another unit here. So the Marauder Horsemen of Slaanesh, once again, they're new because they're obviously marked and they've got fancy helmets now and all that type of stuff. But, you know, it's a Vanguard unit, they're fast-moving, they're able to fire on the move. These types of things you want because, yeah, you know, you want to be able to skirmish. That was what the Warriors of Chaos were also known for on the tabletop, is being able to skirmish a little bit. So having the accessibility for that makes it a lot more nostalgic for those tabletop players, but also giving you something new. Chaos Chariots of SLAANEsh are a thing, and this is actually a throwback, I think, to the tabletop, because the Chaos Chariots were freaking deadly, like, nothing to sniff at. But yeah, obviously, they've got a little bit of the tints for SLAANEsh and all that type of stuff. It would have been great if they would have also had the steeds, like we have with the Regiment of Renown, but maybe we get that in the future as a form of DLC. The Regiment of Renown is really cool, and I love it. I just would have loved it as a proper unit too, because I just think that kind of fits with everything. I don't know, maybe it's just they thought like it's not fair. There's a few things that from the DLC, which I'll talk about in the review, which will be later around this week, where it's like, well, it would have been nice if we would have had access to certain things, but let's not talk about that right now. Going into the more unique style units, here we have the Chaos Warriors of SLAANEsh. We have two versions of them, one with sword and board, and the other one with Hell Scourges and shield. So yeah, this is something that we were wanting. This is something I've been complaining about since day one of Warhammer 3, because SLAANEsh needed a little bit of armor, a little bit of defense, and you can use these with the monogods too, which I think is freaking awesome. And yeah, like, they just look so cool. Having Hell Scourges as a unit, which is something that we never had on the tabletop, barring just the Hellstriders, it just makes me really happy that we finally have these. And hopefully for Old World, that's the main thing. Anything I see here, I'm like, oh, it would be really good if we saw them for Old World too. It would be really, really nice. And yeah, this is just, they're good, they're great defensive units, they can hold their own. Like, I've had them fighting against Nurgle, and they can hold down for a certain amount of time too, which I think is just really, really special, and it's just so important to see. So yeah, we get that a lot, and we will see a lot of assets being reused throughout the Warriors, but then again, they are warriors, you know? So when we go on to, say, for example, the Chaos Knights of SLAANEsh, they're more like Chosen. They use the assets from the Chosen more than the Chaos Warriors. But they look freaking cool. Massive, you know, they do a lot of damage. They're fast too. Not as fast as Hellstriders, which is a shame. I'd love to see in the future warriors mounted on Hellstriders. I think that would be freaking amazing. But until then, it's just nice to see these ones like this. Especially since, like, the pink radiates really well. Just having the Chosen helmets, which I think is freaking awesome. I love the helmet option so much. And yeah, as you can imagine, I'm just giddy about these things because I'm a big SLAANEsh fan, and it's nice seeing that. Just kind of further gets added in when you start seeing the Chosen of SLAANEsh, which, yeah, it's the same thing as the Knights, just dismounted. But they look so cool. They look just absolutely so cool. Very powerful, able to do a lot of damage. These are an amazing frontline unit if you just want to have a big punch there. It's just so nice to see this like this. Getting proper monogod warriors. Yeah, that's something I've been saying a lot throughout this video, but you have no idea how appreciative I am of that. Again, two variants with this, which is the standard sword and shield, and obviously Hell Scourges and shield. Hell Scourges have become my favorite unit, by the way, like, no questions asked. And lastly, we do have the Chaos War Shrine of SLAANEsh. We do have a lot of different war shrines, and that's cool. This one's got the SLAANEsh flavor because it's got the mark on the top, which I think is freaking awesome. And yeah, this is a buffer unit. It also does some damage. It's basically a moving war shrine. It's not as strong as, say, for example, you know, the war shrine on a mammoth, because, well, it's not a mammoth, but it's able to do a lot, and it's just really nice. I can't wait to have these in my armies when I start streaming this, because today I should also be streaming a Azazel campaign, because, yes. Don't worry, there'll also be videos dropping on the channel which are linked to the other Chaos Lords and so on, so, like, yeah, there's a lot of content. There's a lot of content coming out. It's going to be fun. Now, obviously, I can't give you a review of the faction and all that type of stuff, because that will be later when the review embargo's up, but if you're looking for a faction with heavy armor and speed, which is something that the SLAANEshi factions in general have needed, then this is likely going to be the faction for you. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. We'll start a bit of a discussion. There's a little bit of time until the next video drops, which will be one of the other Chaos Champions. I haven't really decided which one's going to drop next.